So Henry Sheldon was born and raised in Vermont in the 19th century. Like many other people in the 19th century, became really interested in the practice of collecting, of somehow preserving aspects of Vermont's history as it was unfolding and as it had been in earlier days. When I first arrived at Middlebury, I was touring the Henry Sheldon Museum downtown and came across this amazing, quirky chair. And it looked really funky. And so on reading the label, I learned that it was a relic chair. And that means that each spindle on the back of the chair came from a different site of historical significance. So the idea for the class was for students to think both about the kind of whole context of the chair as a whole, but also digging down into these individual parts and hopefully come to some greater understanding both about the town of Middlebury and the practice of history itself.
So this J-term class, the Relic chair, it's Sheldon Museum right outside of Middlebury. It's all focused around this guy, Henry Sheldon, who kind of acquired different pieces of wood and different objects from all around Middlebury and built this chair.
It had pieces of wood from all over the country. There's pieces all over Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, because it was a collection of all these pieces of American history kind of condensed into one chair.
It was all over the map. We would kind of all laugh as a class of like why he chose these certain objects. Like, I think the first day everyone was kind of taken back when we were like, wait, I'm supposed to be researching like this random dude in Vermont's like barn, like how am I gonna get any information?
So we looked at that chair through the lens of material culture, which is art history or art studies practice, where you look at form and material to try to discover things about culture through that lens.
I'm hopeful that over the course of taking this class, students not only became more observant about the objects surrounding them in their everyday lives, but also reflected upon both the establishment of history and institutions of memory, and also what is important and significant to them in their own lives.
Every person in the class would study a different spindle, which is one of the parts of the chair.
I thought the coolest relic of the Sheldon chair was the Centennial Building. It was from a building that was actually part of the Philadelphia World's Fair, which at the time was the biggest gathering of people in America.
One of the relics I actually studied from his original chair was the relic of Colonel John Shipman's barn. And Colonel John Shipman was kind of considered the founder and one of the father of Middlebury.
So it was a spindle from the USS Congress that was sunk in Lake Champlain in a battle with the British, and actually Benedict Arnold himself set it on fire on the shores to prevent it from being captured by the British. To have a piece of wood that he interacted with and he did something with is a pretty cool experience.
So they were using these the very raw materials of the archives, correspondence, land transaction papers, and the like, to tell a story about how the object arrived here and how it was important. I thought that thinking critically about this chair could be a great kind of micro-history of both the practice of making history, and in some cases literally making a historical object, but also in terms of digging down deeply into what some of those individual spindles, what kind of stories they contained.
So each person studied a different aspect of the chair, and then we actually in turn built our own one to kind of represent what a relic chair might look like today.
So I think the finished chair looks amazing. It's very visually arresting, and while Sheldon's original chair was also quite quirky, it requires a lot of close thinking to get to noticing that the spindles are different. Ours kind of shouts that.
The relic that I chose for the new chair was a replica of Gamaliel Painter's cane.
he was like kind of regarded as like one of the like founding fathers of Middlebury, and on tradition they hand out a replica of Camellia Painter's cane to all the graduates as kind of a symbol for Middlebury College. So we had a replica made for our class and a 3D printer model, so it was like a little like green replica of it that we then put into a clear plastic tube and made that into a spindle.
What I donated for the Relic chair was a pair of headphones that Ellery Foutch gave me. And I chose those for two reasons. One, just because of the aspect of like the aux cord and the headphone jack. Like Apple came out with like the new headphones, so I thought that was relevant. But also just from Ellery Foutch, as I figured, you know, she is the president, first woman president of the college, and she was the president of when I was here also. So just her impact on the community, it makes it a lot more special to have Ellery Foutch's headphones. I'm imagining in 100 years there probably won't be any headphones. There'll probably be some Uber technology kind of implanted in your ears or something.
Yeah, I procured a piece of wood from the old Middlebury Snow Bowl ski patrol hut. One of the biggest things that's been super meaningful to me has been my ability to ski here. The bowl is a pretty unique thing to Middlebury as a community, and I think it really commemorates like both everything from the Middlebury ski community to the Middlebury Ski Patrol and to the Snow Bowl that we have, because it's a pretty awesome resource we have as students.
The original chair had a piece of California redwood that Sheldon seemed to include primarily because it seemed to have some sort of exoticism to him. We wanted to pay homage to that, but also recognize current events. And so we contacted a colleague whose family had been affected by the wildfires in California, and they sent us fragments from a fence on their property that had burned, made of California redwood. So there's some continuity, but also an acknowledgement of the historical change as well. One of the things I thought was important about actually making a chair ourselves and selecting and thinking about the relics rather than just studying what people in the past had done was the kind of metacognitive exercise that was involved in selecting and reflecting upon what is important or significant to us in 2018. How might we develop this kind of historical empathy for what Henry Sheldon did, and even think more broadly about what's important to us now.
I think future students in 100 years are going to think of this chair similar to how I thought of the Sheldon chair. You're kind of going to look at it and scratch your head a little bit and like look at all these random objects, but I think that it's really important to kind of give meaning to these relics and like document our society and like our present state of living, and the area in which we live, and Middlebury is a great spot to do that.
I think thinking about this chair, and especially about the practices around it, especially of relic keeping, of memorial making in some ways, is a way of transmitting to future generations what we find significant or important. I think that's what Henry Sheldon was kind of trying to do, was to do almost a time capsule in the form of this chair. And so I'm hopeful that this will have encouraged students to think critically about how our everyday lives right now are continuing to make history.